Mr. Subhashish Nath. He's a keynote speaker for the session plenary session 1, and we have Professor Mukulji Asher, who has joined us through Google Meet online straight from Singapore. My fellow colleagues, it's a heartfelt welcome to all of you. On behalf of Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, I, Ritika Chaudhary, Assistant Professor in Department of Commerce, deem it a pleasure and honor to extend a very cordial welcome to all of you on plenary session 1, themed Trade, Commerce, Business and Economy in Samriddh Bharat, of the international conference themed as Samriddh Bharat, a journey towards the third largest economy. I would like to welcome our chair for the plenary session 1, Professor Dr. Madhuvich ma'am, former professor, Faculty of Management Study, University of Delhi. I also extend a heartfelt welcome to our keynote speaker, Professor Mukulji Asher, who is a professor in Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. Sir has joined us online from Singapore through Google Meet. We welcome you, sir. A very warm welcome to our esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Subhashish Nath, founder and CEO, Global Risk Management Institute. I would request you both to please come up on the dais. With a round of applause, please. Sri Rabindranath Tagore rightly said, "It is important to understand that continuous progress is not development until it is successful in maintaining the balance of prosperity and morality." This sentiment echoes our shared vision for a future where innovation goes hand in hand with ethical consideration. In this era of rapid technological advancement, it is crucial for us to synergize our efforts, foster collaborations, and ensure that progress and growth is not only innovative, but also sustainable. Samriddh Bharat is not just about economic prosperity. It's about weaving a tapestry of progress where every thread, from individual dreams to collective aspiration, strengthens the nation's vibrant future. This quote must appropriately highlight the multifaceted nature of Samriddh Bharat that encompasses not just economic growth, but also individual well-being, social progress, and collective ambition. This is a period of Amrit Kal, and as the saying goes, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai, when Bharat is going to take a quantum leap. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a matter of honor and pride for us to have a galaxy of distinguished guests and eminent speakers for the one-day international conference on Samriddh Bharat, a journey towards the third largest economy. Dr. Madhuvich is a former senior professor of finance with over 4 decades of experience at the Faculty of Management Study, University of Delhi. Her professional and teaching interests include the areas of international finance, risk management, banking and financial services, corporate finance and accounting. At present, she is a member governing body of Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi as trust representative. She is also the academic council chair and president at Global Risk Management Institute, Gurugram. Professor Vij also served as the government nominee for the Institute of Company Secretaries of India from 2019 to 2023 and is an independent director for 3 private limited companies. She has been a non-executive independent director of Moil Limited, a mini Ratna PSU from 2010 to 2013. She is a member, Board of Governor of Arun Jaitley National Institute of Financial Management, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, member Academic Advisory Board of a few management institute. She was also the coordinator, Syllabus Revision Committee for Management Paper of UPSC, New Delhi 2021. Professor Bitch has received the Alumni Excellence Award from Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi. Dr. Bitch has participated and attended the Global Colloquium on Participant-Centric Learning at Harvard Business School, Boston, USA. She was on the panel of judges for award of Prime Minister's Trophy for selecting the best steel plant for 2 years, 2011 to 2013, and has also been a member of Ad Hoc Task Force Horizontal Framework document. We welcome you, ma'am. Now I would request Professor Harminder Kumar sir and Professor H.K. Singh sir to please come up on the dais and welcome our chair for the session for the planter, with the planter. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Professor Anupama Hasija ma'am and Dr. Onkar Singh Deol to please come up on the dais and present ma'am with the memento. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Mukul G. Usher. He obtained his PhD in economics from Washington State University in 1972. He was a faculty member with the Department of Economics and later with the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore for over 4 decades, stepping down in June 2018. He has been a visiting faculty at the Asian Public Policy Program at Hitsubishi University in Tokyo since the early 2000s. He is a non-resident visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, that is Impact and Policy Research Institute in New Delhi. He is a senior adjunct fellow at Research and Information System for Developing Countries, that is RIS, in New Delhi. He is a fellow Amrita Center for Economics and Governance at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University, Kollam, Kerala, India. He's on the editorial board or advisory board of several journals, including IIMB Management Review and Poverty and Public Policy. His research focuses on public financial management, pension reform, and on expanding India's geo-economic and geostrategic space. He has published extensively in national and international journals and has authored or edited more than 16 books. His latest book, published in 2021, is an e-book on public reasoning, economic reasoning, and public policies, case studies from India. He has been a consultant or advisor to several government organizations in India and Asia and to multilateral organizations and think tanks. He served as chairman of the 5th Finance Commission of Haryana during 2016 and 17. We welcome you, sir. He has joined us online through Google Meet, straight from Singapore. I would request Sharma sir, NC Sharma sir, Dr. NC Sharma sir, and Professor Kavita Yadav ma'am to please come up on the stage and present a planter. Although he's there online, but we still want you to receive the planter on his behalf. Technical team, please present him with the virtual memento. Technical team. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Subhashish Nath, he's a founder and chief executive officer, Global Risk Management Institute, Gurugram. He's the founder, Access Risk Consulting, which is currently the Genpact Enterprise Risk and Compliance. He's a thought leader to the FICCI and GRMI Risk Task Force Initiative, which was created a model risk code for Indian corporate. He's on the board of the various audit committees and risk committee member at a mid-sized NBFC company in India. He's an active industry speaker at forum across United States, Europe, and Malaysia. He's also the visiting faculty at leading business schools of India, including IIMs, ISB, MDI, NIMS. Mr. Nath was the service line leader for the enterprise risk and compliance practice of Genpact globally and was responsible for driving growth and new digital solution development in the risk domain, including sustainability, anti-corruption, enterprise risk management, third-party risk management, internal audit, and SOX. Prior to Genpact ERS Access, he spent nearly 2 years with the Global Center of Excellence of Ernst & Young and about 9 years with Arthur Andersen. He is a chartered accountant by profession and has authored thought leadership papers and is an active industry speaker of forums across US, Europe, Malaysia, and India, leveraging his experience working with clients across the globe. He has been a panelist and chair at various international and domestic forums, including the various CEOs and Directors Roundtable in New Delhi and around role and contribution of risk professionals in strategic decisions. We welcome you, sir. I would request Professor S.K. Jain and Dr. Shivani Thakur to please come up on the stage and present him with the planter. Thank you, sir. Now I would request Professor C.S. Dubey, sir, and Professor S.K. Grover, sir, to please come up on the stage and give a memento to Mr. Nath. Thank you, sir. We are privileged to have with us Professor Madhuvish ma'am. Your visionary leadership and invaluable insights will undoubtedly enrich our deliberations today. May I now request Madhuvish ma'am to please present the welcome address and take it forward from here as the chair and moderator of the session.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, and a very, very warm welcome to all the dignitaries, our dear students present here. Cannot start without thanking Bhagat Singh College, Shilpi, Professor Khurana, your present principal. It was good to see, the kind of adulations all of you had for both your principals. Speaks volume about the college and the kind of atmosphere which prevails in the college. So, uh, thank you so much. And, keeping in view the time, we try to keep our deliberations a lot more involved, wherein our students and the participants also, feel that, what we are discussing is a lot more relevant, because the kind of topic you have chosen really gels well with the kind of environment in which we are learning. In the morning, we heard a lot of figures about, you know, uh, when we would reach the mark, when we would be a part of the developed economies. But, this whole thing about trade, commerce, business, and economy, in the kind of setup we are, I think we need to really deliberate and discuss, because you need to manage, you need to understand, and unless you plan, we would not be achieving our goal. India is the fifth largest economy, and we've heard a lot about that in the morning. But the important part is that we do plan to overtake Germany and Japan by 2027. These are the forecasts given by IMF and also Standard and Poor. Both of them are very respected agencies who have a good idea about the progress through which our country is passing. It would be good to mention about the current, I would say, the global challenges. If I were to highlight at least two of them, the pandemic and the geopolitical tensions, and how these two have tested the world economy. We need to rebuild confidence both in our international trade and investments. And in order to do that, we need to build a little more resilient economy. Now, we would try and keep our focus in terms of the backdrop of trade commerce, and how this would, going forward, help us to build a resilient economy in terms of the growth rates which have been projected. India very successfully hosted the G20 summit. In fact, I was a part of the conference which was held at Bhagat Singh College. And needless to say, the summit was a huge success, and it discussed important issues ranging from the climate change to environmental preservation and a lot more. If we are going to talk about the world trade, or you're going to talk about trade and commerce, right from World War One and Two, and the kind of devastation which was witnessed, we had the setting up of the Bretton Woods, and how the Bretton Woods helped the countries who were devastated by war to arrive at some, as we say, semblance in international monetary relations. It's a belief we have that only the developed countries need trade. No, it's both the developing and the developed countries who benefit by international trade. So, the IMF and the World Bank all were set up after that, after the world wars which we witnessed, to help the various developing economies to reach some kind of level in terms of international trade and commerce. Now, if you are going to mention about, let's say, building a balanced economy in terms of the trade and commerce which we are talking of, Uh, from our perspective, we need to talk about a few challenges which India is facing as of now. The banking sector, which is, I would say, the lifeblood of any economy, has moved from a scenario of, and let me quote the words which our finance minister also quoted, from a twin balance sheet problem to a twin balance sheet advantage as of now. Now, what is this twin balance sheet problem which we were facing, I would say, right from say 2010 onwards, or maybe a little before that also? The twin balance sheet problem which our country was facing was the problem of rising debt, rising corporate debt for a lot of corporates, which also impacted the balance sheet of the banks, which resulted in the banks having a lot of NPAs on their balance sheet. So this twin balance sheet problem, which which had a lot of NPAs on the balance sheet, was, I would say, one of the reasons for our ranking to go down by the Moody's. In fact, there was a point sometime in 2016 or 17 when Moody's and S&P also gave us a ranking of Baa3, which was just a level above junk. And I'm sure we can understand that if our ranking is just one level above junk, what it means for our country. But if you look at the kind of developments which have taken place in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years specifically, most of the banks have managed to reduce the kind of NPAs which were sitting on the balance sheet for a long time. And commendable here is also the effort by our central bank to have come up with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act, and also the concept of having the bad bank, So they're trying to propose a one-time solution to the banks by having some kind of, what I would say, like an asset reconstruction company, which would help the banks to remove a major part of these NPAs from their balance sheet and come up with a little more clean kind of a balance sheet, which also helps the world and the credit rating institutions to look at our bank's balance sheet and maybe look at the soundness of the banking structure. In this context, the kind of focus we would want to have on the resilience of not only the banking sector, but on the overall economy as such. This would be the first kind of issue we would like, our panel here to discuss. So the format which we plan to adopt is, I'll try and ask, our panel member here one question, and then maybe go on to Professor Mukul in terms of what are his thoughts on trade commerce or the issues we are highlighting. So, Mr. Subhashish, the professor comes naturally to us. So, Subhashish, keeping view the kind of background you have had and the kind of experience now you have, both in academia and the kind of rich industry experience you have, a little more in the consulting sector, as I would say, what do you think would be some of the essentials to make India resilient on its journey to become the third largest in the world?
Sure. Thank you so much, Professor Vij. Firstly, again, let me thank the college for providing this terrific platform. Uh, Respect to all the esteemed senior members in the room. And for all of you students, some of what you're hearing possibly sounds like, gosh, how does, make any difference to my life? How do I get placed after this is possibly what matters. Uh, what's the next qualification that I get? That's possibly what matters. But recognize why it's relevant for, I think, every one of us in this room is that end of the day, we're going to make this country what it will be. Samridh Bharat is not going to be about what just the government does. It's about what we make of the nation. So coming to your question, honestly, one of the things that we've been talking about for the longest time is how do you make corporate India Inc. resilient, agile, future ready? All of our projections of third largest economy, 2047 being the year, I think each one of us believes in it. But fundamentally want us to realize that as any country goes through this journey, there will be blips. And we've seen quite a few along the way. We've had the Yes Banks, we've had the PNBs, we've had the Baijus, and kind of that list is a little worrying in some ways. But you have to realize that these will happen. Because it's closer home, we talk more about it, we read more about it, but these blips will happen. Now, the way to ensure that a country gets resilient is you've got to have certain frameworks. Professor Wij was the co-chair for a risk task force that was formed back in early 2022. The former SEBI chair, Mr. Damodaran, actually chaired it. Members of the task force included people like former chief risk officer of Citibank Global, included Professor Walker from St. John's University, New York. It had legal experts like Mukesh and Shardul. It had former Big Four CEOs like Richard Rakes of the world. So it was about 18 odd members, all of whom, Professor Vij, you're aware of it. We spent 18 months going through it. And what we came up with is something called the Model Risk Code. Now, the Model Risk Code essentially is trying to embed in organizational DNA, how do you deal with the uncertainty? There's a phrase called known unknown and the phrase called unknown unknown. Unfortunately, very few leaders even look at known unknowns, and the percentage when you think of unknown unknowns is significantly south of 1%. If you think companies get hit by known unknowns and unknown unknowns, you can imagine for a nation, it's even more scary. There's a way to do it. There's science behind it. The science is very simple. How many of you in the room, especially students, I think people on the front row would have possibly heard of it. How many of you have heard the concept of what-if scenario analysis? Okay. So essentially, what-if scenario analysis is nothing but saying, if you expect a sequence of activities to happen in a certain way, be reasonably certain that in reality it won't. So then what do? How do you prepare yourself for it? And I can tell you from having had the good fortune of working with some extremely tall leaders across the country and even globally, that the best of leaders are very prepared for dealing with what is BAU, which is business as usual. Because they see it, they run it, they've got to the top because they've been super successful with it. But what most of them fail when you have the question in a boardroom, what if? And you suddenly find people looking around. Okay, do you have an answer? Did you think about it? And it just repeats itself over and over again, no matter how decorated a boardroom it might be. Resilience at the heart of it is about the country and corporate Inc. being prepared for the what ifs. I'm not saying that a COVID is going to repeat itself, but try and put it in context. India has actually come out of COVID extremely strong. And I think kudos to our government. I think they did a phenomenal job of how we handled COVID. But trust me, we came out of it really well because the rest of the world, A, did worse than us. And the reality is the entire world got impacted. Has anyone thought about what if it was something that only hit India? or only hit the region and just maybe India and a few of the neighboring countries, which anyway aren't the largest economies and don't make much of a difference to where Samrit Bharat wants to be, we would have possibly taken at least a decade to come out of it. That is resilience. How many of you, how many of us, how many in the government are really working towards preparing that resilience factor, the what if factor, the ability to deal with the unknown, the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns? Young members in the room, a lot of you hopefully startup aspirationals. That's what's actually driving India forward, because let's face it, a lot of what you hear about India Inc. is not about the Tatas and the Birlas and the Mahindras and the Infis and the Ambanis of the world. They've all existed. A lot of what you're hearing is because of the phenomenal energy, thrive, passion, desire to excel, desire to make a difference that young India has. And that's what you keep hearing our Prime Minister talk all of the time, that our biggest strength is young India. As you people think of your startups, be sure that you think about not the fastest way to make that wealth. Have that hunger and aspiration for wealth, for sure. But don't only think about the fastest way. Think about how you can get there while preparing yourself for what can go wrong. While preparing yourself for what if the worst that you did not plan did happen. As one of the, I was talking to one of the investors, and they made a very interesting comment about startups. They said, whenever you see a business plan of a startup, the year that they projected to become profitable, add 5 to it. And whenever you look at a business plan, whenever you look at the year they will finish the funding you give, deduct 5 from it. That's been a typical startup trajectory. It's because innovators, good ideas, owners are not always the best at it. So, paucity of time, I'm going to sort of give this back to the chair, but those would be my initial thoughts on it.
Thank you, Subhashish. I'm just reminded of what you said about scenario analysis. I do remember after the global financial crisis, a lot of B schools faced the problem of, young graduates were not employable. And I remember looking after placements at that point of time. And it's disheartening to see, when your bright students are not placed. And then that was the time we did a lot of rethinking, though I would still say we were much better off, compared to the other schools across the globe. Maybe because our numbers were very limited, or maybe we had trained our students a little more on that. But I do remember looking up, and we were a lot worried also. So we looked up at a lot of seminars and workshops which were happening across the globe. And what we found in most of the discussions, it was really mentioned that why our B school graduates could not face up to the challenge was that we have not taught them scenario analysis. We have given them theories which call QED, and QED doesn't work in today's time. So I think that was one learning. And the other learning, which was immediately imbibed, and I'm sure a lot of all colleges in Delhi also do that, across the globe also, is about ethics. We thought ethics is something which I learned as a child. My parents have taught me ethics. No, we need to put ethics in black and white. And I think that's what has been a contribution of all the educational institutions, people who have planned education for us. And so the scenario analysis brings this to my mind. And the other is about leadership. I would add that, when we talk of the pandemic, and there were again discussions on what would leadership look like after the pandemic, and most of the discussions said, no more a straight line. Leadership would be a curvy path, which means thinking on your feet, maybe taking decisions at that point of time. And one small, quick other observation, which, I learned from what Subhashit said, was about risk, risk, and about the model risk code also, which one was a part of. You know, there was a time when organizations would think of a finance risk and an HR risk and a production risk and so on and so forth. But now it is not like that. One, risk and uncertainty are words which we accept in our dictionary from day one. The second is risk is supposed to be viewed as a holistic whole, which means you put all the risks together. And the Companies Act 2013 brought this into focus. And it has become mandatory for all companies to have a risk management committee, which they did not have. And they are talking a little more like what I used to hear earlier corporates would do. What is the probability of an event and what is the impact? So that's how our whole thinking has changed in terms of accepting risk. And I do remember, in this model risk code when we were working, the statement which Mr. Damodaran made: risk should be in the DNA of every organization. So risk should be in the DNA of all colleges also. Maybe that's how we look up, to handle the kind of challenges we would face. Before I go further, could I request Professor Mukul, who's online, to share his thoughts on our discussions here? And preferably, if you could have it for 10 minutes, sir, keeping in view the time, sir, 10 minutes. Thank you. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yes, you are audible. Yes,
Okay,
you are
yes. Yeah, we can. We can, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll come back to you with another, query and a question we would have. But thank you, sir, for your insights. And even the presentation you had sent was very, very insightful. I'm sure the students here would really benefit from the detailed presentation, which had a lot of data points on the kind of journey which India is going to have. And taking a little cue from what Professor Mukul said, let us talk about the education sector and how this sector will be an enabler in helping us achieve our objective of Samrit Bharat. The NEP 2020 has been a great step in this direction. In fact, this kind of focus on the education sector was, or I would say, had been missing for a very, very long time. The academic collaboration, which the NEP focuses on, can and will shape the future of learning, both for the educators, the industry, and our students. The educators gain from a vast knowledge which they can always borrow from the industry. The students gain in terms of the ready skill set which you have. the kind of knowledge which is a lot more industry ready. And we have been talking about how to ensure that our students are industry ready. In fact, I do remember way back, ICICI Bank had entered into a collaboration with Delhi University, which worked for a few years, and they had set up a center in about 8 colleges, and we were a part of it, for helping the students be industry ready from day one, so that that time which the companies, the banks spend on ensuring that the students learn, what they need to do at their job gets minimized. Coming back to the national education policy, 2 important areas which I'm sure all of us here are familiar about, but which I would still like to highlight, are the outcome-based education and the academic bank credit. The academic bank of credit is a great enabler for students who drop out of the education. Could be financial constraints, could be health constraints, or could be any other reasons. Now, these are very supporting initiatives which has been taken by our national education policy. It has a lot for the higher educational institutions, but another important area which I would like to highlight is their focus on cross-functional thinking. One line which explains it all here is the problems which are facing industry today are not unidirectional. Now, if the problems facing industry are not unidirectional, then how can the solutions be unidirectional? So you talk of the best management institutes also, wherein they were saying, okay, I specialize in finance, or I specialize in marketing, or I specialize in production. No, that doesn't work. So we need to understand the total dynamics of an organization. And this would be my next question to you, Subhashish. And again, keeping in view that you have spent a lot of your time in the industry, how do you feel that the Indian education system is working as an enabler to support the Smrit Bharat objective and, important, Bharat's journey towards a larger economic power center?
Sure. Thank you so much. Is it fair to assume most of you are from background? Yeah. Terrific. Show of hands for how many in the room have thought about a non-CA, non-accounting, non-finance career? Okay. Glad to see at least 5-6 hands have gone up. I wouldn't have been surprised if there was 0. And the reason why I bring this up, the government's doing a lot, the NEP is doing a lot, this entire concept of academic bank credit, extremely forward-looking, and I'll quickly come to that. But I think it's equally important for all of you students sitting here to recognize that till you break the mold and till you choose to ask yourself the question, will you build a career based on what you learned in class from class 1 to 12? And because commerce or economics or whatever is a great graduation program, should that determine your career aspiration? And it's very honestly one of the biggest challenges that we face today. As a country, we've been brought up to be told that there are only that many good careers to make. And those few careers are defined. I come from Calcutta. Right? If anyone knows a typical bomb culture, as I call it, if you didn't do engineering or medical, then anywhere you waste in life. I chose to do neither. So my teachers had disowned me in class 11 itself. So the good news was that I never had an attendance problem. They didn't care whether I was in class or not. Okay. But I'm not asking you to do that in college, but I'm just saying, think beyond. So why is this relevant for this conversation? The reason this is relevant is that there is, and NEP supports that, there is a huge amount of need for super specialized education for talent to get employable. For those in academia, you're familiar with NAC credit. I keep hearing from colleges we've got written up for lack of employment-oriented programs. Forget colleges. Even our B schools, what are they doing? They're churning out millions of MBAs with some reasonably shocking placement percentages if they were to be shown really. The world today and India for sure needs employment-oriented programs. And I've always said walk the talk. 30 years of corporate life, reasonably happy in what I did in risk management. The reason I gave it about 5 years back and 2 years back completely, and I've now just run an institute because I believe it's a time to give back and it's a time to create an institute which only teaches risk management. We don't do anything else. We have zero distraction. Trust me, a consulting partner's life is exceptionally exciting. Money rolls in like nobody's business. You fly business class, you hit every continent you want to, and you lead an extremely cushy life. The reason we've set up this institute is because we believe that a Samridh Bharat, if we were to actually get there, it requires young India to educate itself in specialized areas. We need media experts. We need media to recognize that a true independent media makes the government more powerful. What talent does media attract today? We need academia to attract the best of talent. You don't make teachers and professors by Oxford and Cambridge coming and running a 2-week workshop. Ask your faculty leaders, members here. They've not become faculty members by getting coached for 2 weeks. You need risk managers, you need doctors, you need nurses, you need hospitality experts. Does a big request to the government that I keep bringing up in every forum, please support higher education focused institutes. Don't use straitjacket process of saying, this is the only way we'll accept higher education. The day our young India equips itself through those specialized education channels, I think we will certainly be a step closer to Samridh Bharat. We will certainly get there a lot faster. But I'll repeat myself that it has to be a two-way street. The government's got to do a bunch of stuff. I think faculty needs to get live to the fact that, like I say, because I'm assuming there are a lot of accounting and commerce faculty around here as well. Like I keep telling my students, I'm happy to say that I call myself a professor of practice, that when a balance sheet is all about assets and liabilities and expenses and revenue, you will remain an accountant. The day those numbers speak to you and you don't memorize ratios and the number tells you why fluctuation in receivables or in inventory is reflective of what's going well in a business or what's hurting a business, you've become a true professional. So I'd urge faculty to try and sort of get that across. I'll request students over here to embrace the concept of breaking the mold. Don't stay straitjacketed. Look for specialized education. And obviously, we continue to work to try and see how more super specialized education can enable India for a faster track to Samridh Bharat. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Swajish. Absolutely great views on this. And I think very rightly, no one size fits all. We need to modify it according to the kind of requirements we have. But on that note, could I come to Professor Mukul with a question wherein we would like to hear your thoughts from a distance. So, sir, my question to you would be, as you see India from a distance in Singapore, what would you say are the biggest challenges you have observed over the last 4 to 5 years? And what more would you like to see as enhancements for India to have a greater impact? I hope my question, sir, is clear. Do you want me to repeat it? माइक देखो ऑन है जस्ट
You would
सर अनम्यूट सर या Thank you so much, sir. Good listening to your views. Um, Now, Subhashish, you have forced me to think a little out of the box because, your thoughts, in terms of the earlier question was, I think our students loved it most. So, I think, let me ask you a totally different off track question. And I've often read your posts even earlier because you were a regular part of recruitment at FMS. I find, Subhashish, you have shared your views on how a sporting culture of the country provides added impetus to the growth of the economy, an area we have not touched till now. Can you add some color and context to your views in the context of Samrit Bharat and something which our students would really appreciate? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for asking a question again, very, very dear to my heart for a few reasons. We just heard Professor Mukul talk about national character, and I completely believe in that. Samrid Bharat will be what young India's character will be. There are no two ways to that. We cannot be anything else in 2047, but the character of young India. Young India has not, in the past, had enough opportunities to do things outside of academics. I take pride in saying Saurav Ganguly, each one of you knows, Dada of Kolkata, a school junior of mine. He's got bowled out to my bowling possibly as many times as he played with us. But my upbringing or family background never allowed me to pursue sports. Do I regret it? Possibly not for what one got to do, but would India be where it needs to be if there are many, many more future sports talent folks who don't get to do it? I think we will. I don't know how many of you know of the government program called the TOPS, which is a Target Olympics Podium Scheme. I love the fact that our government actually believes in a program like that. I don't know how many of you followed. India recently won the Asian Women's Badminton Championship. We all hear of the PV Sindhus of the world, but they won it because of a 17-year-old Anmol Karb. Anmol Karb is a product of the top scheme. The reason this is important is sports changes the DNA of the country. Sports teaches you to accept defeat. No profession faces as much defeat as sportsmen do. It's a reality of life. You don't become a world number one winning every match. You lose, you get better. Till you get to the point that you know you've taught yourself how to deal with defeat. It changes your entire thought process. Sports forces you to embrace diversity of culture. You have to become a team person. You've got to build a certain degree of positive thinking in life to be a successful sports person. These are essential DNAs that we Indians don't have. We Indians love to crib. We love to say India mein sab kuch kharab hai. And we take a lot of pride in discussing that in larger global forums also. There are itne problems. And I don't find that same degree of, I won't even call it patriotism. I don't see that conviction in people saying, even if there's a problem, are you solving for it? The hackneyed statement, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? For Samrid Bharat, young India needs to be part of the solution. It needs to bring in a positive outlook to life. It needs to leverage schemes like the top scheme if you have the talent. It will teach you to accept defeat and keep striving for the top. Speak to any successful sports person and you realize that their strive for the top is relentless. We see them for the 90 minutes they might be on court. There is a 16-hour day that goes behind it. It's not the number of hours that they spend just practicing the sport. It's the time that goes into controlled breathing. It's the time that goes into meditation, not to deal with stress, but to build phenomenal level of focus. When in shooting, you have a windy day and a temperature that you are not trained in, and you're trying to shoot an object in the air. That level of concentration, my dear students over here, if you had even 1% of you, each one of you would be toppers in your class. That's what sports brings to a country's DNA. And it makes you embracive of every possible culture. Have you ever seen Olympics where people from different countries just literally don't go passionately hug the winner? There is no country. There is nothing of jealousy. No one's ever jealous of a winner in sports because they all believe that one day they can get there. Most of us non-sports people lack that. We don't have the humility to accept defeat. We don't have the grace to share the joy of a successful sports person. So Professor Vij, I think you touched upon a very, very sort of string very close to my heart. And I truly believe that if India becomes more of a sporting nation, which I love the fact the government's doing so much to support, we're going to be a very different country. And a far more positively vibrant Samrit Bharat beyond just the numbers of whatever we will be, X trillion. But I think that vibrant sports Samrit Bharat would be a way more powerful Samrit Bharat.
Thank you, Subhashish. Uh, Great to give a different perspective, to what we are discussing here. Uh, yes, I think in the last few years, we have learned a lot on design thinking. And the one tagline of a design thinking is, at a point, I remember reading a lot of articles on design thinking when they started coming in the Harvard Business Review. And a lot of times, even as a finance person, I would not look at that article. I'll say, oh, this is not meant for production people. Because design, the mindset automatically said no, more for production. But now the way design thinking is being viewed is exactly the point which you have raised, that we need to look at the solution and not the problem. Okay. On that note, I will, keeping into the time, I'll ask one more quick question to both our panelists. And that's something which also is a concern for all of us. Keeping in view, the large number of specialized institutions, which, as you were mentioning, Subhashish, and the number of IITs and IIMs and other institutes which have come up. The crisis, I would say the mammoth crisis, which threatens the Indian higher education institutions, is the crisis of faculty shortage. Being a part of a B school, I also understand how faculty from the bigger IIMs are going to the smaller IIMs, similar for IIT, but then the involvement is minimal. So like if I would go, I would just teach a course and come back. Now, this problem of faculty shortage, and I would say having the right kind of faculty, is an important crisis which is facing us. And as what you had also mentioned, we have the youngest population. And going forward, the need for higher education will increase many-fold in India. How do you think, or what do you think would be your response, keeping in view a larger lens, which means what could a regulator do about it? And maybe how could the institutions look at this problem? So quick response from you, Subhashish.
I don't know, Professor Mukul, are you there? Would you want to go first?
Yeah, maybe, yes. Professor Mukul, could we have your views on this
You're
first?
there, happy to.
Yeah. Professor Mukul, are you there? Could I repeat a question? Yeah, we can. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Subhashi, short,
Just quick,
quick view.
quick three,
quick
four
view.
comments. So I think there are essentially a few things. One is, if I just go back in time when I started my firm back in September 2004, we used to go to FMS. Professor Vij was a senior faculty there already. To me, even then, meeting a senior faculty at FMS was a big deal. Sharing a sort of stage with her is a moment of pride for people like us. The reason I start with that is that academia has, in our views, held a place of pride. I think I consider myself now a part of the academia world. I think we have a role to play in retaining that place of pride. If academia becomes only a matter of, is it paying enough or not, I think it's going to, and I think it's become dramatically more paying than it was before. And the reason I bring that up is how many, again, students in this room aspirationally look forward to becoming faculty ever? Anyone? I rest my case. That is the challenge. And therefore, since it is such a real challenge, a country with such a young population, which will need tons of faculty, will not find a solution in the traditional solutions of incentive compensation. It will need a little bit like what some countries have had to do with armed forces. There are countries where you don't have a choice but to serve 18 months in the force. We will need to put the responsibility back on corporate Inc. and say, for your successful leaders, they need to take 3 stints of 6 months in a cycle of 5 years and go teach. There is no shortcut. We cannot suddenly create that many faculty members, at least talented or knowledgeable enough. You don't want anyone and everyone becoming faculty, which is a bigger risk. Because if you had incompetent faculty, God save the country anyway. So let's not try and find that as a solve. And instead, we really don't have a choice. And I'm a firm believer on this. I haven't had some conversations with folks in the ministry as well, where I'm trying to drive this as an agenda, saying, why should corporate Inc. have the luxury of the profits and not be forced to commit to build the country as well? So Samrit Bharat does need that to have another agenda while we build the track. Disruptive, but you need disruption sometimes to deal with challenges at scale. And I believe this is a challenge at scale for India. Thank you.
Yeah, rightly said. But honestly, let me say that, in my career, I've observed, I'm only saying I've observed that industry is also very, very demanding. So after having been there for 20 odd years and probably made the money, a lot of industry people are also wanting to come to the faculty and probably as a right resource. So, this whole thing of professor of practice, which you find in the professional institutes, is a very well received kind of an initiative which has been taken. So the collaborations between the two, the focus on skill-based learning, I'm sure all that will go way forward for our country. Before I close, just in the context of what we are doing, in the context of our whole discussion here, in the context of building up a Samrit Bharat, I think we need to also ensure that our students also become a lot more responsive. The fact remains, and I also say that always, that you do have access to a lot of resources. The kind of environment you are living in, probably one could not dream of that environment even about 10, 15 years back. But that also poses a lot of very real challenges for our real students. So technology is both an enabler and something which, would force our students always to stay up to date. How do you stay up to date? Attend conferences like this, be a part of online learning platforms. So you have a lot of programs, could be the Swayam or the MOOCs, which go a long way in adding a lot of add-ons, I would say, to my learning, not only simply to my CV, and be also aware of the various cutting edge technologies today. And the whole question is, how do I differentiate my CV from the others? And I do remember even during my FMS days, a lot of students would come up, because the companies would be the same, the pool would be the same. How do you ensure that my CV has some add on which the others do not have? So I think those uh, could be some kind of initiatives which our young students could take. And I'm sure all of you in today's environment are very good at solving a lot of complex problems. So, with this note, thank you to Professor Mukul, who joined us from Singapore. Thank you to Subhashish for your insights. And thank you once again to our audience, to our students, to the faculty and the staff for inviting us here, helping us share our views, and making us a part of the deliberations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Madhubich ma'am, for gracefully chairing the session. And your words of wisdom have truly set the ball rolling for the other sessions and the research paper presenters in the technical session. Thank you, Professor Mukul J. Usher, for your insightful speech. Your words have ignited inspiration and enlightened us with valuable perspectives. We thank you, sir, Mr. Subhashish Nath. We are truly honored by your presence and deeply appreciate the wisdom you have shared with us. Your insights have undoubtedly enriched our discourse today. Moving towards the end of this session, I would like to quote Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. This quote aptly captures the essence and aspirations of Samrid Bharat that facilitates cohesive national endeavor, characterized by unity, collaboration, and efficient action. Today, as we convene for this distinguished conference, our objective is to underline the multifaceted essence of Samrid Bharat, which is not just about economic prosperity. It's about weaving a tapestry of progress that encompasses economic growth, individual well being, social progress, and collective ambition. Indeed, we find ourselves amidst the auspicious era of Amrit Kal, a period ripe with boundless opportunities. As the saying goes, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai. This is the moment, the perfect moment where India stands poised to embark upon a transformative journey. With these words, I, Ritika Chaudhary, sign off for this plenary session 1 and request everyone to join us for lunch. Thank you so much.
लंच तो कर लेते हैं, मेरे को तो आज कोई जल्दी नहीं है ना ज़्यादा, ये अपने आप रखवा। अच्छा अच्छा, सॉरी।
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.